got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on Sports.
All right, welcome in. It is GameTime Decisions here on this Wednesday now, November the 6th. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we've got a lot going on across the sports betting universe here with a full slate of NBA games back in action after a night off for Election Day. We'll have plenty to get into in the association. Of course, college basketball back on the center stage as we get ready for week number 1 here of the college basketball season. Plus, plenty of big blue blood teams getting ready to do battle this week. Some great matchups here early on in the sports, in the college basketball season that we'll focus in on. And let's not forget, we still have a little Maction Wednesday here midweek. College football will be at the top of our minds here as we had a couple of games last night. We'll have a couple of more games here tonight that we'll focus on. Plus, week 10 of the NFL season is going to getting ready to kick off tomorrow night in what should be one of the best games of the week. And you got to love it. Here we are in week 10 of the NFL season, and urgency, I do not think, even remotely comes close to explaining exactly what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals as they've got to take on the Baltimore Ravens tomorrow night in what is, I don't want to say a de facto end of season game for the Bengals, because this was a team that started 0-3 on the season and now finds themselves at 4-5, but must win does not say enough exactly of what this game is going to mean for the Cincinnati Bengals, who will have an opportunity to crawl back into the playoff picture here, a little expanded playoff opportunity this season, don't forget, in the NFL. But they're going to have to do it against a Ravens team that has had no problem dropping points on weak defenses. And to say that the Cincinnati Bengals defense is weak, well, that would be an understatement. The only good thing is we got a Thursday night game tomorrow with a total hovering around 52.5. That's not necessarily something we're used to seeing on short weeks for teams, but that's exactly what we've got tomorrow night with the Bengals and the Ravens. Does the game mean a lot to the Ravens? Certainly. Why? Because, well, they're chasing the Pittsburgh Steelers, as is everyone else in that division. Pittsburgh had a bye week now. They get to recoup a little bit, but they've got a big game coming up this week. There is nothing solidified about the AFC North other than, well, Cincinnati trying to save their season, along with Pittsburgh and Baltimore trying to battle it out for the AFC North crown. You tell me if we have not heard that before. So we've got a lot to go over in the NFL as well as college football week 11. We've got CT Betts and the Wizard, Kenny White, joining us here in about 20 minutes. They, of course, will tackle some of their favorite bets in college football, as well as their best bets in the NFL. And do we really need to point out the fact that urgency is big in the SEC right now? You want to talk about a absolute unbelievable weekend in college football for what is many people consider to be the best division or conference, rather, in all of college football, the SEC. Well, how about we have not one, but two de facto elimination games for the college football playoff here? What do I mean? Well, you don't have to look very further than the top 25 teams of Georgia and Ole Miss going at it this weekend. And what makes that so important? Well, you got an Ole Miss team who's at home catching points, who already has 2 losses. A third loss will basically eliminate Ole Miss from the conversation about a college football playoff, which was expanded this year, let's not forget, to 12 teams. Unfortunately for Ole Miss, if they lose a third SEC game, there will be the Who Gives a Crap Bowl that they'll be looking forward to, and that'll be the best that they get. Now, for Georgia, well, they've already got 1 loss, but what they don't want is a second loss. And why is that? Well, they are already losing the tiebreakers with teams like Texas A&M and LSU. So what happens to Georgia if they lose this game is now they drop further down the pecking order, especially when it comes to tiebreakers. And just like that, not only will Georgia not be playing for an SEC championship, they could very well be on the outside looking in from the college football playoffs. So to say that's a big game would be an understatement. And then a real elimination game coming in between Alabama and LSU this weekend. And both of these games very familiar from the standpoint of the spreads are right around the same. Interesting total here at 58.5. This is LSU at home at night. Now, over the years, LSU getting points at home at night was an anomaly. It's not something that happens very often over the years. Why? Because it's an impossible place to win a game. But here we've got 2 teams coming off a bye with elimination facing them because neither of those 2 teams can afford a third loss. And if they do get it, well, bye-bye Alabama and bye-bye LSU. Now, what makes this game especially intriguing is what I just mentioned when it comes to tiebreakers. LSU has got the tiebreaker over Georgia. Texas A&M has got the tiebreaker over Georgia. So to say that this game would not be huge for LSU, well, that's an understatement. And of course, Kalen DeBoer, being the first-year head coach there, taking over for the legend Nick Saban. Any pressure on him for this? Yeah, I would say there is a lot of pressure in this game because I'm not sure the last time folks who are Alabama fans can remember that here we are after week 11, and yet Alabama, there was no need to even consider college football playoffs or national championship because the season would be over. It has been a hot minute, but that is what we are facing in the SEC this week. 2 huge, as far as I'm concerned, elimination games going at it with Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin going up against Kirby Smart, and of course, Kalen DeBoer taking on Brian Kelly and LSU. And Alabama, by the way, has lost 3 of its last 4 road games against ranked opponents. Kind of head scratching, is it not? Georgia, by the way, has an unbelievable record with Kirby Smart against top 25 teams. In fact, they have beaten 35 top 25 teams since 2016. This has always been a spot in which you wanted to look to back Kirby Smart, as Georgia under him has always seemed to elevate its game when they are pushed, especially against the better teams. We just watched them do it against Texas, didn't we? Georgia struggles with the less than teams, not the better teams. This is going to be an epic game coming up this weekend for the SEC. And Ole Miss, by the way, starts 7-2 or better now in 4 straight seasons. And this is the first time that has happened since the late 50s and early 60s. So we are in uncharted territory for a number of these teams, but we got much more to cover. Not only that, in the NBA, as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday in the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Certainly appreciate you stopping by as we have a huge week in the sports world here to kick off the first week of November. As we talked, what a weekend it's going to be in week 11 of the college football season with the SEC up for grabs. It's still anybody's guess as far as what or who is going to emerge victorious and win the SEC Conference Championship, thus solidifying an opportunity in the top 4 with the bracket and the seeding for how it's going to work with the top 12 teams this year. We also have a huge weekend in the NFL kicking off tomorrow with the AFC North battling and the Cincinnati Bengals trying to save their season going up against the Baltimore Ravens. When's the last time we've seen a total of 53.5 on a Thursday night? Usually primetime unders have been absolute money over the years. Is anybody running to the window to try to sweat out an under in this game? Not me. The eye test tells me we're going to be getting some points in that game tomorrow night. We're going to talk much more about that and a bunch of the other big games coming up, including the return of Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers here. Could this be the part of the year in which the 49ers take it to another level and maybe run the table? We got a lot to cover on that. And college basketball is back. We've got a bunch of games here tonight we're going to go over, but let's start in the NBA with some of these games coming up at the top of the hour. And we'll start with the Orlando Magic visiting the Indiana Pacers. Going to be in Indy here. The Pacers hovering around a 5.5 point favorite in this one. And listen, the Pacers are a big favorite, and it makes sense. Why? The Magic have been just decimated once Paolo Banchero ended up getting hurt and is now out for the year. He was a big part of everything that offensively worked for the Orlando Magic, and he is no longer available to the Orlando Magic, which we have now seen go 0-3 with double-digit losses to teams like the Cavaliers, the Mavericks, and the Thunder. Now, granted, that's not the bottom of the barrel. Those are three teams that were playoff bound a year ago and in all likelihood playoff bound again this year. But in those games, we're talking about the Orlando Magic averaging just around 93 points a game. That is not going to get it done. Now, Wendell Carter Jr. did return to the lineup against the Dallas Mavericks, but guess what? He had played 9 minutes. Then he suffered a foot injury once again. He will be out tonight. So very tough situation here for Orlando right now early in the season. They are going to have to spend a whole lot of time hoping that Franz Wagner as well as Jalen Suggs are going to do the heavy lifting for this team. That is a big ask, though. The good news is they're going up against an Indiana team who in all likelihood will not be interested in playing any defense. Indiana is already fifth in the NBA in scoring this year, averaging around 118 points a game. And I don't know why this would be any different in this game here. It would have to be Pacers or pass in this one. But the Orlando Magic have to figure some things out. They got to get past life without Paolo Banchero, and I know it's going to be difficult, but they are going to have to figure it out. Speaking of figuring it out, what in the world tonight? We have got a battle for the ages. The Golden State Warriors visiting the Boston Celtics here tonight at the TD Garden in Boston. The issue here for Boston, if there is any issue here for Boston, it's that the health of Jaylen Brown continues to be a bit of a concern for them. And it doesn't look like he's going in this game again tonight. Those that are going, guys like, well, Steph Curry. This should be interesting. In fact, his points prop hovering around 22.5, I thought was interesting. And a lot of whispers and rumors, people looking at the Golden State Warriors right now and thinking some of the same faces, some new faces here, but the same result. We're getting some quality defense, and we are getting, obviously, lights out shooting across the board. Very efficient. Guys like Buddy Hield stepping right in and making up for whatever you think you might have lost with Klay Thompson heading to the Dallas Mavericks. Still a very dangerous team. But with the Warriors, they never get enough credit for the defense that they bring to the table. And defense they're going to have to bring to the table in this one. But anytime I can get the Warriors, even against the Boston Celtics, I can get them getting points in what, nearly 6.5? Let's see, right now, 6.5 is still there. 229 now as a total, as many folks are expecting points, and more points in this game here. I'm not so sure that this is going to be just a free-for-all of threes. Both teams will attempt them, but I also think both teams who are off to a hot start this year, they are both worried a little bit about some health issues with some of their star players, as well as the depth of people. Now, again, Jaylen Brown out. It's a hip problem for this game, but it's now the second game that he has missed. This, I think, is going to be a little bit slower paced. And if they're not shooting 45% from three here tonight, these two teams, I think this under has got a really good shot at being a good value play here. The Warriors 3-4 to the under here. The Celtics 5-3 to the under. But I do think this is going to be a very interesting game to keep an eye on. I'm not running to the window to lay 6.5 with Boston, but I would not at all be upset with an underplay here at 229. I do think the defenses will show up here in this matchup tonight. And also, Steph Curry, 22.5 points. Feels a little light to me. Might be worth taking a look at that. Also, plenty more going on, including the Lakers and the Grizzlies in the NBA. The Lakers, what happened against Detroit? Can they bounce back? We'll talk about it as Game Time Decisions continues.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri on this Wednesday. Certainly appreciate you hanging out with us, as in addition to a full slate of NBA games, let's not forget we got plenty of college hoops back in display. And, we had a great opening night a couple of nights ago, loaded slate of games, and it all culminated right around midnight with a great game between Gonzaga and Baylor. Didn't turn out to be all that great if you were the Baylor Bears, but just the idea that on a opening night in college basketball, we had a couple of top 25 teams going at one another, as opposed to, Miami taking on Fairleigh Dickinson and they win by 70. I would love college basketball to make the opening night of the season more competitive along those lines. Give me some great games like a Zags taking on Baylor for the opening night. I'd love to see college basketball schedule that more often than some of the cakewalks that the Blue Bloods ended up having. Now, having said that, we got plenty of games here tonight, necessarily monster games, but we definitely have some games that tonight are going to be very interesting. And I think one of the ones that stuck out to me right away was Virginia. And Virginia is at home getting ready to take on Campbell. Now, what makes this game so interesting is that Tony Bennett decided a couple of weeks ago to just stand up and be like, I can't do this anymore, and retire, which, of course, sent a lot of people reeling backwards going, what in the world? Where did this come from? And now this is a Virginia team that an entire Virginia squad that was recruited by Tony Bennett was, wanting to play. There was going to be some transitioning here. The good news is that his longtime assistant and his good friend, actually, Ron Sanchez, will take over the program. But there is no way that is not going to be felt in that locker room on that campus. And I'm sorry, asking Virginia to win by 17 points in this game, especially given the fact that there's only going to be about 60 possessions in this game. Anybody that's ever watched Virginia play, whether Tony Bennett is there or his assistant Ron Sanchez is doing it, it doesn't make a difference. Nobody is going to be running up and down the court here. And this is a big ask for a team that we all had a lot of questions about coming into the season with Tony Bennett at the helm. And now that he's there, yikes. This is not something I'd be running. And Campbell is no basketball juggernaut, but they also play at one of the slowest paces in the country. So if you're going to barely get me to 60 possessions and you want to give me a 17-point head start, I'm good to go. I'll take those 17 points. Also seems to be a prevailing number with Villanova, again, a team that is not going to be running up and down the court in any way, shape, or form, taking on Columbia, also laying 17 points. And now Columbia is a very trendy pick this year in the Ivy League, and they should be, because this is a team that returned just about everybody from a year ago. Same coach, same starters. They've actually done a pretty decent job in the transfer portal here. And anytime, again, slow-paced teams, and both teams love to shoot the three, and both teams, and Villanova doesn't like to defend the three, let's be honest here. Villanova has this nasty habit over the last couple of years of allowing teams like Columbia to hang around far too long here. And I feel like this is going to be another one of these situations where Columbia, ton of experience, not going to be intimidated by the spot, very slow and methodical, hit a couple of threes. Next thing you know, it's going to be very hard to pull away with 17 points in this one. So a couple of very big prices here in college basketball for some blue blood teams that I just don't know that I'd be running to the window to lay right off the bat. I will also say this about Rutgers here tonight, because this news broke earlier today. I'm looking very forward to seeing Rutgers play this year, except for the fact when I learned that their stud, Ace Bailey, will not be playing in this game because he injured himself in practice yesterday. That is not great. I mean, this is a kid that many people project to be the top 1 or 2 picks in the NBA draft coming up. He will not be available to Rutgers here tonight. Not that Wagner is going to run up and down the court and beat them, but it does take a little steam out of the sails here, is that I was hoping to get a look in Piscataway here to see what this Rutgers team, who has gotten a lot of hype this year, what they look like. We're going to have to wait to get more on that. We're not going to have to wait for CT Betts and Kenny White, because they're coming up next here on Game.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Week 11 of the college football season. As I say it, I kind of shudder here because I can't believe we got 11 weeks for the college football season already. And that means if you're just joining us for the first time, you've missed 10 weeks of pure gold from the one and only CT Betts, Chris Thurston in the house, and of course the Wizard, Kenny White, who show up here each and every week and just dish out the winners here. And it was another profitable week, gentlemen. Last week, congratulations. CT Betts just loves his Iowa Hawkeyes, and you can't go wrong with that one. But Kenny, we've got a lot of very interesting games coming up, but I want to start with you, CT, because we watched Iowa State get embarrassed last. I can't believe they lost. I'm still having a hard time believing they lost. But they are taking on a Kansas team that a lot of people have seemed to have stuck a fork in. And, they are one of those teams, CT, that the record I don't think reflects how good this team is or could be. I don't know. Iowa State on the road at KU. What are we doing in this one?
Yeah, Joe, I agree. It's kind of been a disaster for Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks so far this year. They've only won 2 games, high expectations for the team coming to the year. But with that being said, the last 2 games, we saw from them were their best 2 of the year, a big win versus Houston and then a close loss versus K-State where they end up getting the cover there. And now we get a chance to back them at home off the bye, and I'll look to do so here. And Matt Campbell's bunch, they failed to cover their last 2, and they're coming off a loss at home, like you said, Joe, is 13.5-point faves to Tech. And to have they had to have a huge comeback 2 weeks ago to beat UCF. Their defense is beatable, and UCF, we saw them rip off 350-plus yards on the ground against them. So Daniels, is as disappointing as he's been, he's still a dual threat. And I think having that extra week to prepare for the Cyclones will come into play here. The talent is there for the Jayhawks. Like you said, it's been there all year. Just haven't been able to put it together. They beat Iowa State the last 2, and I think that goes to 3 straight Saturday. So we're going to play on the Jayhawks +3.
Going to play on the Jayhawks +3 there. Like the look. Don't trust Matt Campbell. should have been the coach of the New York Jets, but that's a whole different story there. We'll move on there. Kenny White, the Wizard, in the house. And Kenny, let me ask you a question, because only you, my friend, would show up here ready to break down a UAB versus UConn game, and I love you for it. But UConn laying almost a touchdown on the road. I get UAB is terrible. Is their quarterback back yet? Is he not? What is the deal in this game?
You know, Joe, Jacob Zeno could be back this week, but Jalen Kitna has gotten some good experience, and he is just as good as Zeno now. He's thrown for close to 800 yards the last 2 weeks. You know, I think Trent Dilfer had enough of the talk about he was the wrong hire at UAB. I think Trent Dilfer will be fine. He's an NFL guy. He'll figure it out, and they have played much better. Their last 2 games have been their best 2 games they played. They covered both games against South Florida and Tulsa, and they got the W. They put up 59 points last week. So Trent Dilfer has figured it out. So Connecticut, they got their 6th win last week. They beat Georgia State 34-27. Connecticut is going bowling. I could see a little bit of a letdown here from the Huskies, and if they do let down at all, look out. I think UAB has just similar talent. So I think it'll be a very close game no matter what. But if UConn lets down, UAB is going to get the win, brother.
Are you shocked that it's taken this little time to make UConn also a very realistic and you know a decent football program there, Kenny, with UConn? I thought he's done an amazing job there at UConn for what he's got.
Yeah, I like Jim Mora. I think he's a really good coach, and he has made strides with UConn. We were talking about they're a bowl team now. They're going to play in a bowl game. So, yeah, he is doing a great job there at Connecticut. So, yeah, Jim Mora, I believe in him.
Playoffs? No, that was his father. I'm sorry. CT, help me understand something, unless I ate one too many brownies. Explain to me how in the hell Oklahoma is a favorite on the road against anybody. What is the deal here laying a couple of points against Mizzou tonight, this Saturday?
Yeah, Joe, I kind of had a good source telling me on Monday that Cook probably wasn't going to play. And I kind of thought that myself anyways. And I liked Mizzou anyways, -2. I made them the favorite in this game, Joe. And a good source tells me they've had this game circled for a while since Caden Green. He transferred to Mizzou from OU. His dad owned an insurance company, and OU fans started leaving dozens of awful reviews about his company on Google, and it's got to Drinkowitz since, and Drink has come out and said that OU has disrespected his team. I think this has been baked into the line, Joe, and we saw some money come in because they heard that Cook was going to be out, and they pounded OU, and it was great because I love to see it, and we're able to grab 3 now, and I did. And if it gets any higher, I'll grab some more. And I get it. Jackson Arnold, he's been better since he's been back in, but I don't think he's built to take advantage of the Mizzou secondary, which is, their clear weakness. This is a much bigger game for the Tigers, and I think Mizzou is more talented here. And under the lights here, Drinkowitz, with all the factors here, he's going to want to step on their throats, and I think Mizzou gets a nice big win here. OU has not developed, adapt here to the SEC yet, and I think Mizzou is going to give them a little welcome.
I agree with you here. Backup and no backup here. That's a big ask for this OU team to go on the road and lay points and win it outright. I can say the same thing, Kenny. I mean, listen, last week, if you took Illinois getting points at home because you thought PJ Fleck laying points on the road was suspect at best. Well, what if he's laying almost a touchdown now against Rutgers in this game coming up this weekend? Does Minnesota keep rolling, or does Rutgers actually stand up here at this one?
Yeah, the Illini was a bad luck loser. We lost the turnover battle 2-1. Yards per play were pretty even in that football game. So it all comes down to taking care of the ball in any of these games. But PJ Fleck won his 6th game. This is a common theme this time of year when teams win 6 games and become bowl eligible. That's one of the goals that they have. And I think that this is a look-ahead game, a kind of a sandwich game. They play Penn State next. They have no respect for Rutgers. Rutgers is 4-4. They need 2 more wins to get that bowl eligibility. You better bet Greg Schiano's team's going to be ready. They've lost 4 in a row. Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, and USC. Those aren't bad football teams. Those are good teams they lost to. I think Rutgers is in this game to the end, and they keep it close with a shot to win.
Yeah, and the total also 47, 46 and a half. Boy, 2 teams that can play defense. That'll be interesting to see how that goes as well. And CT, the old holy war happening again this week, isn't it? Here, BYU on the road taking on Utah. Kyle Whittingham is going through it. Let's face it, injuries galore here has kind of derailed their season, but BYU, everyone's got them winning the Big 12 now. This is also a big ask, is it not, laying points on the road in Utah?
Yeah, Joe, I'm on some stinkers this weekend, huh? I mean, I'm on just some disappointing team after disappointing team. I think the Holy War brings out the best in the Utes for this one, though. Whittingham will get them up to play here. I get it. Tip of the cap to Sataki and BYU. It's been incredible what they've done. Let's not forget, the Cougs haven't won in Rice-Eccles Stadium since 2006. The students will show out for this one in the Holy War. I think this is a game the Utes might win.
All right, Kenny, I'll get your thoughts on that game. Plus, we'll talk some NFL action when we get back here on Game Time Decisions.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia and Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got into the end of the season. 17.9, 10-point line last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri joined again by the one and only CT Betts and the Wizard Kenny White. We're going to dive into some NFL Week 10 action here. But, Kenny, before we do, CT likes Utah at home catching points in the old Holy War battle against BYU. How are you leaning in this game?
It's a matchup for me, Joe. I'm on Utah as well. I made the Utes the favorite in the game. BYU is a good story, and I tell you what, I've been waiting for years for a playoff, and we've got a 12-team playoff. I invented a 16-team playoff 20 years ago that I presented the NCAA, and it took them this long to finally do it, and they got 12 teams. But when I saw the bracket and BYU was there in the Final Four with a bye, I had to puke in my bucket next to me because there's no way in hell they are one of the top 12 teams. I've got them ranked 28th in the country. I don't want to see the 28th team in the country in the 12 teams. I don't want to see them in there. So I want Utah to beat them this week.
Oh, Utah, Kyle Whittingham looking to get it done. Maybe a swan song, too. Maybe he goes out on top. Good old Kyle. We'll have to see. I think we can all agree, though, the initial rankings, I believe we can all agree Oregon should be the number one team in the country for now. Much still to be determined there. That's about all people are going to agree upon. All right, NFL, let's do it here, guys. Week 10, some great games coming up this week. And let me start with you, CT, because I don't know. This feels about as big a trap spot for the Buffalo Bills as there is. Taking on Indy. It was a struggle against Miami at home. You figure that. Indy coming off just really a beatdown here. Getting what, 4 points? Flacco still under center? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this game and you're like, wow, who in their right mind would want to play against the Bills this week? You know, they've ripped off 4 in a row. They've been putting up plenty of points in all the games. Well, I do, Joe. I want to play against them, and I think that this might be a little letdown on the horizon, you know, versus a Colts team that played very tough football on Sunday night. They were in it the whole time. You know, they were up 7-0 at halftime. Probably should have won the game. The Bills, they also have KC on deck next week, and this is their fifth, Joe, road game in the last 7 weeks. And, you know, coming off a tough division game, like you said, versus the Finns, that game probably locked up the East division for them already, as crazy as that sounds. Colts are better than their 4-5 record. They just haven't been able to close some close games out. I do think Flacco, as you know, old as he is, he's an upgrade on their center right now from AR. I feel like catching 4 at home versus Bills defense that can be beat is decent value here. So we're going to play on the Colts +4.
Colts +4 in this one here, and I agree with you there, CT. It's maybe just looking a little bit ahead to that game coming up with Kansas City coming to town. Kenny, let me ask you, big Thursday night game. I've been saying it. Listen, the Bengals started 0-3 to 4-5. They can ill afford a loss here. This is a pretty big game coming up against the Ravens. Ravens can't stop the pass. The Bengals can definitely pass the ball. 53.5, Kenny, on a Thursday night total. What gives in this game?
Yeah, I'd like it over too, Joe. The first one was only 38-38 in regulation, so we could have a similar shootout here in this game. Since they have home revenge as well, Cincinnati, but I just have a huge difference in these teams. I think the Baltimore Ravens are one of the best teams in the NFL. I have them right there with the Chiefs, 1-2 in the league, and I know that they have 3 losses now, and they know they can't afford a loss. I don't care if Cincinnati's 4-5 and they know they can't. The Ravens do not want to be looking up at the Steelers and have Cincinnati right behind them. They need to keep winning, and I think Baltimore puts the pedal to the metal in this game, and I think they put a ton of points on the board against Cincinnati's defense, who I think is below average.
Ooh, all right. Love that. I think it's going to be a heck of a start to the week there, this Thursday night game with Cincinnati and the Ravens. Another interesting one involving an AFC North team, CT. The Steelers catching points against the Commanders. I bet this game over already, 44.5. I think it's up to 45.5. I can see points from both these teams in this game coming down the pike. How do you see it? Which side are you leaning towards in this one?
Yeah, Joe, Tomlin, he's very dangerous off the bye, and that's what we get here. You know, he's 12-4 coming off the bye. He's won his last 6 games off the bye. I really like the trade deadline moves for Steele, what they did. You know, they grabbed the wideout Mike Williams from the Jets, the pass rusher Preston Smith from the Pack. I think Smith, you know, he brings the experience and talent to help out old TJ Watt, and make that defense even more dangerous than it already has been this year. And Williams, he's going to become another target for Wilson, as he wasn't going to work out with the Jets, especially after the Devontae Adams trade. The move from Fields to Wilson has been working out for Tomlin, and they're playing some great football. Hats off to the Commanders and Daniels, who they're ripping off wins left and right. But the last couple have been a little scary for them, but they scraped by and got them. I think the Steelers' defense might be a little too much for Daniels to make some plays. I expect them to take some sacks here, so we're going to grab the points on the road here with Steel City. Give me the Steelers +3.
Love it. All right, +3 Pittsburgh for CT there. And Kenny, talk to me here. Only you would show up with a Panthers-Giants game. So tell me, what are we watching besides paint dry here?
Yeah, you don't even watch it. Just bet it, Joe, and then go to the movies. But, why would you even want to watch paint dry? Because that's what you get when Daniel Jones is the quarterback and Brian Dable is the offensive coordinator. Both these teams struggle to score. I can't see them. The winner gets 20 in this game. 2017 final. I'm going under 40.5.
I love that. And quickly, Kenny, Jacksonville, Minnesota. You expecting Jacksonville to bounce back here?
I think they do. They did play a big game last week against Philly and almost won. An interception in the end zone kept them from winning that game. But this is more of a must-win game for Jacksonville. I'll take the points.
There it is. Kenny White, CT Bets. You guys are the best. Game Time Decisions will return after this.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. A very happy Wednesday to you as we close out this first hour together, getting ready for a couple of MACtion football games going to take center stage here tonight, part of this stretch in which we get football every day of the week. We had a couple of MACtion games last night, and we got a couple of more tonight, even though they involve Kent State. And that's right, Ohio getting ready to take on Kent State, who is still winless on the season. Their defense also giving up 44.5 points per game and 560 yards of total offense to opposing teams. That sounds very interesting. Ohio has, obviously been the better team in just about every way known to mankind. But over the years, this series has been relatively close, even though both teams have had their ups and downs, especially Kent State here. And anytime you get sort of this rivalry game, action football midweek, I mean, we're talking about 5 of the last 7 meetings have been decided by 7 points or less. This is the Golden Flashes here. They are the home team, and the last 8 meetings between these two have also gone under the total in all 8 games. We saw this total open up at 53. I'm starting to see 52s showing up in the marketplace, and that is where I would lean in this game. Listen, we know Ohio is not going to get up to the line of scrimmage and run a million plays in this game, but they are the better team. They should have no problem scoring points. I don't trust Kent State's offense in order to get enough points on the board. So the under would be my look here. And then, of course, we have another matching game with Western Michigan taking on Northern Illinois. And Northern Illinois, I mean, a upset Notre Dame a couple of months back to start the season. And then, well, what do? They go 1-3 straight up in the MAC conference since then, including a loss to Ball State last week, which is just absolutely head-scratching. And now Northern Illinois has some questions about whether they're not even going to be bowl eligible. They're using 2 quarterbacks here. Neither has really helped the continuity or the offense in any way, shape, or form. And meanwhile, you've got the Broncos here of Western Michigan. They have won all 4 of their MAC games. And get this, they've been scoring 45 points a game in the process there. Hayden Wolf, 11 touchdown passes, just 1 pick in MAC play. He has been a big reason as to why they are undefeated. I will say this, though. The underdog, as far as a side goes, is 24-1 versus or against the number here in this matchup. Boy, oh boy, I got to tell you, this the more I'm looking at this game, the more I'm questioning Northern Illinois, who is a slight favorite here, and the more I'm liking what I see from Western Michigan with an opportunity here to get another win. So never liked Northern Illinois as a favorite. We know this has always been a problem over the years. Northern Illinois is a dog, like what we saw against Notre Dame, is definitely a way I would look. I am absolutely not looking at them in laying any points in any way, shape, or form. However, Northern Illinois will be the toughest defense that Western Michigan has faced thus far in MAC play. But I still think Western Michigan is the right side at home here, catching a point and a half. I would definitely go a money line bet if we were going to look at that. So we got a couple of MAC games coming up. We talked about a couple of college basketball games of interest here that we're going to be keeping an eye on. And the big one to me is going to be, how does Virginia handle the retirement of Tony Bennett? Just a couple of weeks ago, made that announcement, leaving the team in good hands with his longtime assistant. But boy, oh boy, it's going to be very interesting to see how this team comes out of the gate against Campbell. That spread is 17 points. Neither of these two teams are going to be in a rush to push the ball up and down the court. Got to take the 17 points here with Campbell coming up. And we're going to keep an eye on that Villanova game as well. Villanova taking on Columbia, who a lot of people are excited about them in the Ivy League this year, and so am I. So much more still to get to. Another hour of Game Time Decisions coming up next here on The Grid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in GameTime Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network, hour number 2 together. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we're getting ready for a loaded slate, not just tonight, but of course this week across the sports landscape as college basketball is back. And we've got another moderate slate here tonight. We'll have much more to talk about college hoops-wise coming up later in this week. I believe we even will have a Kansas-North Carolina matchup this Friday, which is always going to be exciting, and you can't believe it, but yet here we are. College hoops is back as we get the first big weekend here in November. Looking forward to the slate of games coming up there this week. The NBA back after a night off here, and they've got a lot going on, especially tonight. A huge slate getting ready to tip off here. Detroit taking on Charlotte, and Detroit winners of 3 of their last 4 games. They've started to put it together, but I do like Charlotte in this one here tonight as a slight home dog with an opportunity for LaMelo and Brandon Miller to not have to play somebody named, OKC, Dallas, Minnesota, Boston. They just had to play a double set against Boston. They are gladly going to welcome the Detroit Pistons to their house here tonight. I think they have a great opportunity to be able to win this game outright. And I know it's disgusting because it's the Hornets, but it is the Pistons on the road. I got no problem with the Hornets winning that game outright. The game a lot of people are going to keep an eye on coming up at 7:30 is going to be the Warriors and the Celtics. Celtics laying just about a touchdown in that game, and still no Jaylen Brown, a hip issue there. Both teams dealing with a few injuries, but the total hovering around that 229. We talked about it a little bit earlier. We certainly think maybe more defense here tonight than offense, maybe looking at an under. You also have the Knicks taking on the Hawks here tonight. The Hawks have never met a basketball team they didn't like to shoot as many threes and make them as they want. The Knicks are next up here in that category as the single worst defensive team in the NBA. The Atlanta Hawks are going to welcome in a Knicks team that kind of got smoked there in that last game against Houston a couple of nights ago. They'll have an opportunity to bounce back without a lot of resistance here. Expect the Knicks to get a lot of points, like the over in this game as well. And then, of course, you've got the 8-0 undefeated Cavaliers on the road taking on the Pelicans, laying another big number in this spot. Hey, if it ain't broke, let's not fix it, folks. I do like the Cavs, and I love what I'm seeing from them thus far. I need the Pelicans to get a little healthier, though, before we can start backing them. And then the big question is whether or not the Lakers are going to bother to show up and play this game like they didn't show up against the Detroit Pistons a couple of nights ago. Lakers visiting Memphis in this one tonight. Memphis pretty much laying 1.5, pretty much the slight favorite in this. There were some questions about whether AD would go in this one. Either way, they should have no problem taking care of business against the Memphis Grizzlies. We also have Thursday night football coming up this week, week 10 in the NFL season. Big battle in the AFC North. That, of course, between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Ravens. We're looking at a high total for a Thursday night game. And can I tell you something? The eye test tells me we're probably going to get a ton of points in that game. We saw it in the first game that both teams landed in the 30s and ended up going to overtime. I think we're going to get pretty much the same thing here in this game on a Thursday night. I'm not expecting a ton of defense, but I am expecting a ton of touchdowns here across the board. One of the other big games this week I'm looking forward to, and I don't often like backing road favorites at this point in the season, but it is very hard not to look at this 49ers team coming off a bye week and not think they are, without a doubt, the right side. They are laying 5, taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks, who we just all watched a heartbreaking overtime loss to the Chiefs on Monday night. So now we've got San Francisco welcoming back Christian McCaffrey. They're getting healthier. They're coming off a bye week, taking on a Tampa Bay team who was on the road, now is home on a short week since they played Monday night. And the Bucks are getting 5. I can tell you this, I love Todd Bowles, but the number that stuck out to me here, and it makes sense, Todd Bowles going up against teams that have had extra time to prepare, extra rest. 1-9 against the number as a head coach. And this is going back to his days as the New York Jets head coach. It has not gotten any better with the Bucks. In fact, 0-5 in that role as a Tampa Bucks head coach. They still won't have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans in this matchup. And do not like it at all in this spot. I don't love backing road favorites, but I do think San Francisco is worth a look-see in this matchup here because I do not trust Tampa Bay without its full complement of weapons to be able to get the job done. I think that's going to be a very interesting game. Also, short week. Should the Kansas City Chiefs be laying 8.5 points against the Denver Broncos? Is that something we're doing now? Because I can tell you this, if you haven't noticed, the Chiefs covering a touchdown or more has not been a profitable situation here. Most all their games are within one score. They've gotten a ton of quality luck and things to bounce their way so far in one-score games. I think they've won just about every one of them so far this year. That's a little bit worrisome. Also, from what I saw from that defense against that Tampa Bay Bucks team, who, again, decimated by injuries in the skill position, their top 3 wide receivers were not available in that game, and they still took the Chiefs to overtime and scored far too many points. They were able to run the ball as well. So, little bit worried here, expecting this Kansas City team on a short week to be covering anything more than a touchdown. And Denver, of course, got embarrassed by the Baltimore Ravens. But that Listen, we should know that is par for the course here with the Ravens, who are in a bounce back spot. I do think pretty good spot here to be looking at the Denver Broncos getting that many points here, going up against a team that, well, quite honestly, has shown an inability to be able to pull away and blow out anybody. So I do think Denver might not be, if you're looking for a dog this week, Denver might not be a bad look there. And then I do think a lot of folks are going to be keeping an eye on what's going to happen on that Sunday night game, because I know I will. Detroit and Houston. Houston at home getting 3.5. Everyone seems to think Detroit is just going to run the table. I don't know about that. This is not a great Houston team, but they are much better at home than they are on the road. Feels like we should be backing the over in that game. We'll have more in the Week 10 slate, but we're going to talk some NBA next with the legendary Adam Kaufman. We'll do it next here on Game Time Decisions.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season long. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri here with you and joined by the legendary Mr. A. Kaufman. Adam Kaufman in the house, ready to roll. And it must be, Adam, it must be an NBA kind of night because I am feeling that your Celtics are going to be involved in a very interesting game here tonight that you are definitely going to have a take on. I believe no Jaylen Brown, no, still hip injury there. Looks like the Warriors and Steph Curry back at it. I think this should be a good litmus test, even though it's this early in the season for both these teams. What are we getting from it tonight?
I'm fascinated by this game, and you're looking at some of the odds right there on your screen, obviously. The Celtics are favored, understandably, defending champs, home game, playing great, but not to discount the Warriors. Like, both these teams only have one loss on the season. I would expect, I mean, look, on paper, it's the marquee game of the night, and I hope that it lives up to that in reality while a lot of people are watching. There are a dozen games across the league tonight, but this is the showcase. It's Jason Tatum against Steph Curry. Curry, according to head coach Steve Kerr, won't have any restrictions. He's been playing kind of on a minutes limit coming back from the injury, so that is big news, obviously, for the Warriors. You mentioned for the Celtics, there's no Jaylen Brown, and for me, the first thing of many things, as you know me, volume better, that I locked in on this NBA slate, Jason Tatum revenge narrative, man. I am a sucker for revenge narratives in general, but this one is queued up to the point where I am surprised that Jason Tatum's points prop seriously isn't like 38.5 or so. This thing just, it opened at 29.5, keeps getting bet up. Last I saw it was at 31.5. Everybody expects Tatum, again, especially without Brown, to have the volume, but also just to have the attitude to go off in this game against his Olympic coach who benched him twice. DNPCD did not play coach's decision twice at the Olympics. Tatum, granted, when he did get in there, wasn't great, but he's worked on the mechanics of his shot since. It was something he focused in on in the very short offseason that the Celtics and guys like Tatum in particular had, and he has been playing at an MVP level in the early infancy, the first couple weeks of this season. I have invested in Tatum to not only, of course, hit his number, but 35 plus, 40 plus. And honestly, I did the same thing for Steph Curry. I just think it's going to be mano a mano. I think both these guys are well positioned to go off tonight. I hope that we as fans, never mind as bettors, are in for a show.
Should be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm looking forward. Both teams figure they both, you're right, have some sort of axe to grind with the history between these two teams. And listen, a lot of the same old faces on Golden State are going to make this a very interesting game at the Garden here tonight. I am also very interested to see how long the Cleveland Cavaliers can continue to go. I mean, I could not be more impressed with the brand of basketball that they are playing. They are undefeated. They are doing it by playing the ultimate team game here. Everyone picking everybody up. They're taking on New Orleans, who, of course, shocker, is still banged up. But what do you think? Can the Cavs continue to roll here?
I do tonight. I don't know how long it lasts, to your point. It's not like, we're actively betting on, like it's the NFL and, can they have an undefeated season? Like, that's not going to happen, obviously, in the NBA. But yeah, I think 9-0 is on the table for Cleveland tonight. Absolutely. And there are only two unbeatens remaining in the NBA, one per conference, the other the Thunder, who have a tough matchup tonight in their own right. But I think the Cavaliers are just in a very advantageous spot. Yes, on the road, and that's not ideal, but I took them laying the points, 7.5, wherever you get it. They are largely healthy. Even LeVert, who was a question mark, is going to play. Obviously, Garland and certainly Donovan Mitchell being the head of the snake there when it comes to the talent for this team. And as you said, this Pelican squad is very banged up. The guys that were question marks are going to play, like Zion, like Hawkins, but how well? We don't know exactly what they're going to look like. And you factor in, there is no DeJounte Murray, obviously. There's no CJ McCollum. There's no even Herb Jones. Like, this is a banged up squad that is sort of in survival mode. If, again, I'm comfortable laying the points. If you're not, take them on the money line at minus 280, minus 300. Put them in a parlay with another favorite you like and do it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because New Orleans is a shell of what I think they can be here because of all those injuries. Talk to me in like another month or so when we can actually see what that roster looks like on the court. Having said that, the Atlanta Hawks have covered one game this season, one. And it happened to be the game against New Orleans that they won outright, but again, throw it out the window because they don't have anybody. So now the Knicks are on the road coming off the loss to Houston, taking on Atlanta, who we all know is not going to play any defense. How do you approach this game? Side, total, prop market? What are you going to do in this one?
I do think the Knicks win, and so again, if we're talking about the other half of a roughly even money or even slightly plus money builder, you want to put the Cavs and Knicks together just to win on the money line. You'll get a nice bet on that. I think that both are going to come to fruition. But in terms of how I would attack this specifically, and it is a short spread, so I'd be comfortable taking the points with New York. But in terms of the prop market, listen, Trae Young is a jerk. And I say that on a very personal level. Maybe he's a nice guy, I don't know. But when I bet on him, it tends to go sideways on me. Just a little story where that's coming from. Just the other day against the Celtics, I thought, oh man, Boston in Atlanta, this is like Trae Young, this is an opportunity to defend your turf and put, as Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics, would say, put the red dot on the forehead, go after the hunted. This is your Super Bowl, like we say, obviously, for some of these kind of middling teams. I thought Trae Young was going to go off. Instead, terrible night. What do you have? 2 points, 4 points, something like that. And all I needed for him in this parlay was like 15. He couldn't even flirt with that, and he shot miserably. I bring all of that up, Joe, because generally when Trae Young has a terrible game, and pretty early on whether he has it or whether he doesn't, and obviously a couple days ago he didn't, he tends to bounce back in a big way. Like, the only other really crappy game he had this year, the game that followed it, he had 35 points. So I think the volume is going to be there. You're getting his points prop at 24.5. I'm not saying he's going for 40 tonight or something like that, but I do think he exceeds the 25 in a bounce back.
Liking it a bounce back. Couple of other plays in that game we'll talk about when we come back as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback from Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10-point line last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Mr. A. Kaufman. Ready to roll here tonight in the NBA, Adam. And there's another game here that you've got that I'm very interested in, because we did learn that once again the Denver Nuggets a little shorthanded here. If it's not Jamal Murray, now it's Gordon. Who's got some issues here. I didn't like the depth with the Nuggets to begin with, and now they're getting 7 points against OKC at home. How do we approach this game?
So I don't know if I'm in the right or the wrong about this. Reality will bear it out in a matter of hours, Joe, but I think you hit the nail on the head that the Nuggets' depth and bench in particular is just a big bucket of yuck. It's hot garbage, and it's Nikola Jokic and basically everyone else, and the everyone else tonight is missing Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon. That's a problem, so if you want to invest in a Jokic triple-double, it makes a lot of sense, obviously, and, the number is obviously going to reflect that in part, whereas the depth on the other side for the Thunder, that other unbeaten we alluded to, is tremendous, and Dagnall has them playing at a very high level, obviously. They're a great team. I just sort of think, and again, I don't know if I'm seeing it right, but to me, I would invest in the Nuggets with the points. This feels like kind of a letdown spot for the Thunder. Again, they're playing great, sort of that next man up mentality for the Nuggets. You're at Denver, so you got to deal with the altitude, the whole mile high stuff. If anyone takes a step back, like if SGA has an off night for OKC and Jokic goes off, I mean, they're live to win the game at that point in time. I'm not going to go so far as to invest in the Nuggets on the money line, but covering the points, keeping the game close, I do like it.
I do too. What I don't like is having to bet the Lakers tonight, unfortunately, here, because they screwed me against Detroit a couple of nights ago. Memphis always seems to be a giant you-know-what in the side of LeBron and the Lakers, but it's a pick-em price. You would think in a bounce-back spot here, still a ton of injuries on Memphis here, that the Lakers should be able to win this game and win it rather easily, but the market's telling us it's a coin flip. Do you agree?
So I did invest in the Lakers money line, small play, definitely not one of my bigger plays of the night, but that was also before the Anthony Davis news, and he's been ruled out. So, you're talking about a dude who has been an automatic like 30-10 every game this year. He has been incredible. So you're really leaning in on the almost 40-year-old LeBron James to have himself a great night if the Lakers are going to find a way to win this game. And I do think it's possible. I think he's got enough around him to do it just because of, like you said, all the injuries on the other side with Memphis. But John Morant's playing great. He's facilitating great. A lot of people want to alt up his assist tonight to, 10 plus, and it's 8.5. So it's not a big ladder, obviously, but he is just facilitating very well. Now, the scoring has taken a little bit of a step back, but I'm not so sure he minds as long as it results in W's. I don't know. Close game tonight, really hard to handicap. Wouldn't blame people for staying away. I probably would not have invested in the Lakers if I knew AD was going to be out. I would have just sort of sat this one out. But I'm in it, so I guess let's go LA.
Yeah, and well, if that's the case, I wouldn't mind looking at the under either in that game there, because that's going to be interesting with no AD. What do you think of this Sixers situation? And tonight they've got another interesting game coming up, but I can't trust the Sixers as far as I can throw them. They're taking on the Clippers. Feels like an under kind of game, but what do you think about the 76ers? Unless they get Embiid back, is there any reason to even consider betting them on the road?
Yeah, I bet the Clips money line. Embiid obviously is still out with that suspension. In fact, just as you were talking, I got an alert on my phone from Shams Charania tweeting that Embiid is going to make his season debut on Tuesday. So he's coming back in a matter of, I'm just looking ahead, against the Knicks. So we're still almost a week away. I don't know why he's sending the tweet now. He's got plenty of time to get hurt again between now and then. But that is the plan, Joel Embiid to play in about a week. Yeah, look, the Sixers are just not a very well-built team, well-designed team, certainly not a reliable team. It's sort of just Maxey. It's as far as Maxey is going to take him, because even Paul George, coming back from his injury is a little bit inconsistent early on and has played very little. So I'm with you. I don't, as little as I respect the Clippers, I don't feel like I can trust the Sixers at all at the moment.
Paul George, revenge game or return game, or I don't know what you want to call it. I bet he doesn't last to the second quarter. Exactly correct. Adam Kaufman, we appreciate it as always. Game Time Decisions continues next on.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So, look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take!
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orgy as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once it got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year. And he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on this Wednesday in the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we've got NBA, we've got college basketball, we've got college football going on right now, as well as a big start to Week 10 in the NFL coming up tomorrow night with Cincinnati and Baltimore. But let us not forget, we still got the PGA Tour back at it in its final couple of weeks of the 2024 season. And Brady Cannon in the house, stepping in and joining us. And Brady, we got and everybody's favorite tournament, the Worldwide Technology Championship. Just kind of rolls off the tongue there, Brady. But it is a tournament that has some decent names in it at decent prices. But let's start with what is it and where is it here? What do we need to know?
Yeah, it's a mouthful, like you allude to. The Worldwide Technology Championships at El Cardinal at Diamante in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Whew! And Tiger Woods is the course designer. They actually debuted here on this course last year. Eric Van Rooyen won, and a birdie fest indeed, Joe. 27 under par was your winning score. It's kind of like we've seen recently on this fall swing in Utah and here in Las Vegas, really wide fairways. Now, as wide as we saw in Utah and as wide as we see at the Mexico Open when they flipped the calendar in February at Vedanta, like 60-yard wide fairways, big greens, and that's because you'll often get the wind blowing here at this coastal resort. So you can't have, your average 20 handicapper playing narrow fairways when the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour. Now, there's not much wind in the forecast. Supposed to blow 10 or 20 miles an hour on Thursday, but other than that, it's just decreasing from there. And here at the Superbook in Las Vegas, our friend Jeff Sherman, he set the winning score number at 25.5 under par. So, the experts are expecting that there's going to be some low scoring going on here once again.
Yeah, it's going to be Birdie Fest USA. I am with you, but the names associated with this and some of the numbers, and it looks like maybe some of the old guys have a leg up here. Jonathan Vegas, Matt Kuchar, who has got some history here. What are you thinking here? Who should we be looking at?
Yeah, there's really not many short shots. I mean, the shortest choice is about 15-1. Max Greiserman, who has finished runner-up 3 times in his last 5 starts. This guy has been a bridesmaid indeed as of late. But, you've got a chunk of this field that's anywhere 30, 40, 50-1. Yeah, absolutely some good cash to be made. And it's a crucial time as we near the end of this FedEx Cup fall, 3 more events. And when they get to the RSM Classic right before Thanksgiving, you better be in that top 125 in the FedEx Cup points, or you don't get your tour card for next year. And I looked at some guys that are also in that top 50 to 60 window, where if you finish in that hole right there, you add a couple of signature events, the AT&T Pebble Beach and the Genesis Invitational. And that will include Ben Griffin, who I played at 28-1. Griffin's a solid player, one of those younger guys who's probably going to win pretty soon. Finished like 11th at the Wyndham. He was 5th at the John Deere, 13th earlier at the... he's had a lot of good finishes, real solid with the irons, great putter, good short game. So I like him coming in here. He does everything well. He's at 28-1. He's currently at 60th in those FedEx Cup standings, so he knows that he's got to hold serve and continue to play well in order to add those signature events to his schedule. And then Harris English, the old man. This guy's probably more accomplished. You talk about Kuchar. Harris English is right there, a veteran who's played in Ryder Cups, contended for majors. He's also coming in off of 2 straight top 10 finishes. He's won at a couple of the correlated courses I used this week. Took him at 33-1. And then I went with a couple of other young guns. Sam Stevens at 36-1. Guy bombs it, makes a bunch of birdies, can really putt. And then at 85-1, my long bomb of the week, Carson Young, not Cameron Young. Cameron Young withdrew earlier today, but Carson Young finished 9th here last year, finished 11th a couple weeks ago in Utah, playing well, very accurate off the tee, good putter, makes a lot of birdies. So, I just kind of bounced around with a couple of guys that I think are a little bit more proven and a couple of guys that are on the up and coming. So we'll see. The Worldwide Technology Championships in Mexico. We'll see if we can find a winner.
I got to ask you, because we've talked about him now over the last month. Our boy Daniel Berger, I believe, is in this tournament here, and we finally think he's healthy. Was he a guy that you looked at? Because I would imagine the number has probably got to be through the roof.
Yeah, I think he's in the neighborhood of 40, 45, something like that. And Berger's a guy that's on my radar every week because, yes, he's getting healthier. And one golf tipster over in the UK that I have incredible respect for, a guy by the name of Ben Coley, did land on Daniel Berger this week. And if Ben's backing you, then you probably have a pretty good shot. I'm just, it's FOMO for me. I want to be on Berger when he wins again because it's going to happen.
Right.
And maybe it'll happen this week. But no, he's another guy like Kuchar and Harris English who's been there and done that a lot more than a lot of these kids that are in the field.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have these last couple of weeks of tournaments where there are guys playing to keep their card and they've got, here's their last couple of shots. What happens when you get guys that are actually in this tournament with nothing to prove? The question is, why are they there? Guys like Austin Eckroat, there's no reason for him to be here. He's inside the top 50, right? So does that lead you to believe that they're working on something or they're looking, are they worth taking a look at, guys that have nothing to play for in these tournaments?
It's a great question, Joe, and that's a tough part to handicap. We can look at all the numbers and all the stats and everything that's quantifiable, but how do you gauge a guy's mental motivation? And, I'm talking about Ben Griffin and Harris English. They're in that 50 to 60 window.
Yep.
I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket, but I think they're aware that they know that they need to play well. It's not that they have to play well and they're going to be out if they don't, but I kind of like that middle ground. And the guys that are inside the top 50, they're already in the signature events. They already have their card for next year. So, yeah, are they working on something? The other thing is, if you're that relaxed and you're just working on something, sometimes that's when you win, when you don't have that added pressure. So, yeah, that's a tough part of the handicap is trying to figure out the motivational side of things. But, I didn't really go with a lot. I didn't go with Greiserman. He's the favorite. Cameron Young was at a short price. And, like I say, the shortest guy I took was Griffin at 28. I think he's as classy a player as there is in the field. And then, English. And I kind of danced around, and I really didn't get too much into the points race. English and Griffin happen to be because I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you want to base your entire handicap on. It's like a must win in football, right, Joe? Oh, this team must win, so that they're probably going to do it, right? Well, no, not really. Not the case typically.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it at all there. We do have some interesting games coming up in the NFL here, week 10. And the Steelers are interesting against Washington coming up. Steelers making all sorts of moves. Tomlin coming off a bye. Are you a believer in the Steelers here this week on the road?
I am a believer in the Steelers, Joe, but for me, it's more so a bet against Washington. And I have been on and against Washington both ways this year. I think I've only lost one bet. They've been a great bet on team, and I was on them last week in that win over the Giants. When they play in division, I want to be on them. Quinn and Kingsbury are fantastic against the NFC East, but it's a bad spot here where it's a division sandwich before another division game next week coming up. In fact, 2 in a row for the Commanders. So here is a little flat spot where I want to go against them.
Yeah, gotta love that approach there. Brady Cannon, always a pleasure, brother. Enjoy the games. Game Time Decisions continues next here on the Grid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have a Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions once again. His third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we're getting ready for a loaded slate of games here tonight. Certainly in the association, not to mention college hoops underway. And the man taking over at the top of the hour, cover all those games with you. The one and only Scotty Wetzel in the house, ready to go with In-Game Live. But Scotty, before we get there, let's talk about some of these games on the card here tonight in the NBA. And you don't have to look much further than your Boston Celtics, who have the game of the night against the Warriors here. How are you approaching this one? No Jaylen Brown. What do you think we're going to get in this one?
Yeah, he's got a hip flexor there. I'm starting to get a little worried about this one, Joe. Great system play, great not really a system, but just a great play, right? We all harken back to the summertime U.S. Olympic team. Steve Kerr, head coach of the U.S. Olympic team, kept Brown off the game, did put Derek White on, and didn't play, Jason Tatum very much. And now everyone's thinking, okay, first game to kind of get back at Golden State. And while I buy into that, Joe, it's almost now it's becoming too popular. I like a pick like that when not that many people are thinking about it, but the line jumped up from 29.5 to 30.5. The whole world's on to his over. Everyone's thinking he's going to come out and score 40 points. He might, and I'm going to play it, but I'm just telling you, I wish this was a little bit more under the radar because I'd rather be on the side of the boys in Vegas than I would the public when a pick becomes a public pick. And the Celtics and Tatum tonight are becoming a public pick. But that said, I'm going to roll the dice. Let's go Jason Tatum.
They really are, though, aren't they? But, I mean, that's to be expected. I think that's going to be like that all year long here. I could have said the same thing about the Philadelphia Sixers, except they stink. And they're getting headlines for all the wrong reasons. They're out on the road now taking on the Clippers. It's the Paul George reunion, I guess, of sorts. But do I trust either of these two teams? What are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, I don't. I really don't trust either one. That's why I'm going to go with the over, Joe. It's dropped down to 215. When I did my notes this afternoon, it was 216.5. So clearly people are betting the under. That's okay. Go ahead and let them bet the under. I'll go with 5-0 series. Last 5 meetings have gone over. I'll go 5-0 last 5 meetings in LA, gone over. I'll go Philadelphia 5-1 over this year. They're not playing any defense. I don't care who's playing. We always talk about it, whether star players and Embiid's not playing, obviously, or not. It doesn't matter. These games go over. So give me over 215, which is a pretty low number, for an NBA game. So I think we're going to get at least some points tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've seen the Clippers play a couple games here, and they are built to be an under team. And the Sixers, let's face it, who do we trust here to score on any consistency in that one there? What are we thinking about the Denver Nuggets, who can't get anybody healthy and have not had a great start to the season? They lose Gordon, and now Jamal Murray has had some issues, concussion, I think. Getting 7 against OKC. I mean, this is in Denver, is it not?
It is. I can't believe it. And the Joker's playing. I don't care who else is not. Maybe Jamal Murray would help. I mean, getting 7. I know it's been a season-long struggle, this first couple of weeks for Denver, but man, you're giving me a touchdown basically with the Nuggets. I'll take my chances, Joe. That the reserves step up. This is a big game. OKC's coming to town, playing great. I just can't. I know it's got a sucker written all over, right? I mean, who in their right mind is going to lay 7, even with OKC playing that well? But give me Denver plus the 7. I'll buy in. Why not?
I mean, out of principle, no. I mean, that is just a absolute unbelievable number there. 7, the Nuggets at home getting against OKC here tonight. And I can say the same thing about Miami. You want to give Miami 5.5, 6 points? Taking on the Phoenix Suns. I ain't buying it. Phoenix, why? They're going to hold on to a lead? What I miss here, Scotty?
Yeah, right? How about Miami? Now, I understand it's not the same Miami team, but they are 13-3 last 16 meetings against Phoenix. So, Miami has shown, Jimmy Butler's playing, that they can hang with the Suns, who really don't blow anybody out. You're right. They can't hold on to a big lead. Their own geezers, get so tired in the fourth quarter. So, you want to give me 5.5, maybe by the hook, get it up to 6, Joe? I'll take Miami on the road, getting 5.5, 6 at Phoenix.
I love it there, Scotty. We also have, of course, some college football action underway here tonight. And an interesting with Ohio and Kent State. The total has come down. It was 53. It's 52 in this one. I guess the question is Kent State going to offer enough offensively in order to get this thing up and over?
Yeah, I don't think so, Joe. Listen, the days of you and I watching MAC football during the week when we get 55, 50 games, It's not anymore. I tried to look it up, but it was just too difficult. But I'm telling you, last year, especially early on in the midweek season, these games all went under. The 2-0 under last night, if you got the hook with the 48.5, as I know I did, it did drop to 47.5. But the other game went way under. This one, you're right. Kent State, the worst team arguably in college football, and you're going to give me 50+ in a game involving them, which means they probably have to score at least 2.5 touchdowns, 17 points. I don't see it. I like the under. It's 49.5. It's 10-0 second quarter. I think you're getting a pretty good number there at 49.5. And I'll go under just out of principle, Northern Illinois and Western Michigan. So that's 51.5, which is basically what it was, and they're tied at 7 right now. And I'll give you one college basketball game that I really like. It's the old, one of the best systems we have, Joe. It's the anti-celebration system. UConn at home, raising the championship Raptor banners, right? Who are they playing? Down the street, Sacred Heart. They're about an hour away. Division 2 or 3 school, right? The line is 34.5. They could win by 60. No, to 100 to 50 if they wanted to, right? But I just think they're going to be a little distracted. Maybe they win 80 to 50, 80-55. Good old Sacred Heart rallies the troops to beat the local team. So give me Sacred Heart plus 34.5.
Sacred Heart plus 34.5. Unbelievable. Love that there, Scotty. All right, in-game live coming up here in the top of the hour. Scotty Wetzel will have you all covered. We appreciate it, Scott, as always. We'll close out Game Time Decisions next here on the Grid.
Are they definitely done with Daniel Jones from this point? And any shot that Dable is off the sidelines, meaning he gets fired before next season?
They have a general manager in Joe Shane. Every big move has to get approval by ownership. So look, the bottom line is they don't know who their future quarterback is past this season. Tommy DeVito's clearly not the answer. They don't have it. Drew Lock's not the answer.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
A lot of concern, I would say, for Georgia in Carson Beck. 3 interceptions. Once again, his third 3-interception game in the last 5 for UGA.
You can argue if they had Alex Orji as their starting quarterback for Georgia, they would be perfect and unbeaten right now just by not turning the football over and running it with your talented backfield.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
What can you say about Hunter? Besides the fact that he's got to be healthy. Remember, he had the shoulder injury that kind of limited him at, once he got to the end of the season. 17.9, 10.9 last year, and he should be, as usual, a double-double machine. He's got to be able to continue to show the ability to try and shoot the ball from 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we look to close out this edition on a Wednesday. We got plenty going on right now in the NBA. A quick look at the scoreboard right now. We had mentioned earlier, we certainly liked the Charlotte Hornets at home taking on the Detroit Pistons. Right now, that is locked up 39 apiece with about 3 minutes to go in the first, actually in the second there before they get to the break. The Hornets are very thankful to be taking on a team the caliber of the Pistons as opposed to the back-to-back Boston Celtics or the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Cleveland Cavaliers, the teams that they've had, the gauntlet that they've had to go through so far in this early season. The Pistons are a welcome sight here for Charlotte tonight. Not so good are the Orlando Magic, down 51-38 with about 7 minutes to go in the first half there. Again, no Paolo Banchero for the Orlando Magic, making it very difficult to back them in any capacity. And the Celtics are often running quickly in the first quarter there, 14-3 over the Golden State Warriors, while the Knicks and the Hawks battling here with about 3 minutes to go in the first. 18-14, the Hawks on top of the New York Knicks. Coming up in just a few here, which Scotty Wetzel and the gang, they will have you covered on In-Game Live. The Cavs and the Pelicans getting ready to tip off here in just a few minutes, as is the Lakers and the Grizzlies. The story there, no Anthony Davis. A late scratch on that one. Lakers and Grizzlies right around a pick 'em price there. And then, of course, the Spurs, Rockets, Bulls, Mavericks, followed by the West Coast games, the Heat and the Suns, the Thunder laying, 7 now on the road against the Denver Nuggets in that game, 7.5 now. And then, of course, we've got the Seer tonight. That's going to be an interesting all season long, but they're up 46-31 at the break. We had talked about here earlier tonight taking the 17 with Columbia over Villanova. And right now they are up at the break 39-37 over the Villanova Wildcats, who just can't be trusted. Laying a big number like that. We liked the Columbia team to keep this thing close, and they might even have a shot at winning this thing outright. Also, Virginia laying 17, taking on Campbell, and Virginia trying to deal with the news just a couple of weeks ago that Tony Bennett, their longtime Hall of Fame head coach, called it quits and retired just like that. They, too, were laying a huge number tonight, 17. They're only up 9 at the break over Campbell. And we've got a few games coming up a little bit later tonight that we're going to keep an eye on here. And, of course, don't forget our good friends there, Scotty Wetzel, Joe Mad, Dave Sharapan, the whole gang will be covering all of these games for you with In-Game Live, which is just a few moments away. We got Maction football underway here tonight with Kent State taking on Ohio. That game right now just underway with Ohio up 13-0, and Northern Illinois and Western Michigan also underway in the second. That is knotted up at 7 apiece. Been a whole lot of fun, some great games coming up this week. Hope you'll come back and join Game Time Decisions again tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern time, as we have got you covered heading into a big Thursday night battle between the Bengals and the Ravens. Don't go anywhere. In-Game Live straight ahead here on the SportsGrid Network. Appreciate you stopping by. We'll see you again soon.